August 21st, 1942. Midnight. Guadalcanal. The sandbar glows sickly green under flare light. Private James Patterson crouches behind a weapon that makes no tactical sense. A 37mm anti-tank gun aimed not at tanks but at men. His hands shake. Not from fear, from the vibration of 100 boots pounding wet sand. The Japanese are coming. Screaming banzai. The sound cuts through jungle darkness like broken glass scraping bone. Colonel Takeshi Masuda's elite troops charge across Alligator Creek's narrow mouth. Bayonets fixed, rifles held high. They believe themselves invincible. They have been told Americans are few, weak, cowering. They are catastrophically wrong. Patterson's loader Corporal Michael Sullivan slams a round into the breach. Not armor-piercing, not high explosive. A tin cylinder packed with 122 steel balls, each the diameter of a marble. The M2 canister, a secret that turns artillery into shotgun. A Civil War relic resurrected for modern war. Patterson thinks about his brother Edward, 19 years old, radio operator USS Arizona, died December 7, 1941 when Japanese bombs turned his battleship into tomb. Edward never had chance to fight back, never fired shot, just died in darkness and fire and water flooding compartment. Patterson promised their mother he would make Japanese pay, would ensure Edward's death meant something. Tonight he keeps that promise. With physics, with mathematics, with 122 steel balls traveling at 600 feet per second. Fire. The night explodes. When the 37mm cannon roars, physics becomes grotesque. The tin canister disintegrates at muzzle. 122 projectiles fan out in cone of death. At this range, barely 30 yards, the effect is not surgical. It is apocalyptic. The charging line simply vanishes. One moment soldiers, the next nothing but smoke and screams and bodies crumpling like paper dolls. Patterson stares, cannot process what he just witnessed. Sullivan reloads mechanically. Training overriding shock. Again, the barrel glows red in darkness. Marines will later say it looked like gates of hell opened on that sandbar. Another canister, another cone of steel. The Japanese keep coming. The 37mm keeps firing, transforming waves of infantry into memories, into statistics, into proof that courage means nothing against physics. 6 months earlier, February 1942, Rock Island at Arsenal, Illinois. Sir Robert Hayes stood in testing range watching his latest canister prototype fail spectacularly. The tin cylinder ruptured inside barrel. Steel balls sprayed randomly, some backward toward gun crew. Complete catastrophic failure. Hayes was 48 years old, chief engineer for 37mm ammunition development. Cambridge-educated physicist who had emigrated from Britain in 1920, specialized in ballistics and weapons engineering. His son Thomas was 24, Marine lieutenant serving in Pacific. Every letter from Thomas described inadequate weapons, described Japanese banzai charges that overwhelmed American positions through sheer fanatical courage. Described men dying because American firepower could not stop massed infantry assaults. Hayes understood the problem with engineers' clarity. Modern warfare had abandoned anti-personnel artillery ammunition. Everything focused on armor penetration, explosive power range. But infantry remained foundation of warfare. Japanese doctrine emphasized close combat, night attacks, human wave assaults designed to break American morale through psychological shock. American weapons were not designed for this. Rifles and machine guns could kill individuals. But mass charges, hundreds of men accepting death to reach American lines. No existing weapon could stop that except massive artillery barrages. And artillery required time, required forward observers, required coordination. By the time shells arrived, Japanese infantry would already be inside American positions. The answer was canister. Civil War technology, Gettysburg, Antietam. Artillery loaded with tin cylinders packed with lead balls. One shot could kill dozens, could break infantry charges before they reached Union lines. But this was 1942. Modern ammunition required precision. The tin had to be exact thickness. Too thin and it ruptured. Too thick and it acted as projectile disrupting pattern. The steel balls had to be precisely .375 inches diameter. Variants of even 0.001 inches affected pattern distribution. The resinous matrix holding balls in place had to shatter instantly at firing without resistance. Everything had to work perfectly, because imperfect weapons killed the crews that depended on them. Hayes had been working on canister for 8 months. 8 months of failures. 8 months of prototypes that tumbled or scattered randomly or detonated inside barrels. 8 months while Thomas wrote letters describing casualties, describing friends killed, describing inadequate firepower. Margaret Hayes's wife found him in workshop at 2 a.m. most nights, calculating, testing, redesigning. She understood the obsession. Their son was in danger. Every day Hayes failed to perfect weapon was another day Thomas faced Japanese charges with inadequate tools. March 1942. Hayes received telegram. Thomas's unit had been overrun in night attack on Bataan. Japanese forces broke through using banzai charge. 17 Marines killed. Thomas survived. Wounded. Bayonet slash across ribs. Letter arrived 2 weeks later. Written from hospital. Father, I watched them come. Heard screaming. Fired until rifle barrel burned my hands. Killed 6 men, maybe 8. Does not matter. They kept coming. Stepped over their dead. Reached our position. I fought with knife, with rifle stock, with hands, then bayonet. Pain like fire across ribs. Fell. Thought I would die. Woke in field hospital. 17 of my men dead. Good men, brave men. Died because courage could not stop courage. I need weapon that makes their courage irrelevant. Build that. Save American lives. Save me. Hayes read letter 5 times, then returned to workshop with new understanding. The canister did not need to be perfect, it needed to be terrifying. Needed to create effect so devastating that even fanatical courage would break against it. He studied Civil War artillery manuals, studied dispersion patterns from Gettysburg, studied how tin cylinders packed with lead balls had broken Confederate charges. The principle was simple. The execution required precision. But the goal was clear. Create weapon that made human courage mathematically irrelevant. By May 1942, Hayes had working prototype. Tin cylinder 0.01 inches thick. Consistent around entire circumference. 122 steel balls, each exactly 0.375 inches diameter. Resinous matrix that shattered cleanly at firing. Powder charge reduced to 40 pounds, preventing excessive pressure. Test firing at known rec produced perfect cone pattern. 130 feet diameter at maximum range. Tighter concentration at close range. At 30 yards, the pattern covered 10 feet wide, 8 feet tall. Enough to kill every man in the squad with single shot. Enough to make courage irrelevant. Enough to save Thomas. Production began June 1942. Hayes supervised every stage personally. Inspectors tested random samples. Fired them into ballistic gelatin blocks. Any canister showing irregular performance resulted in an entire batch being rejected. This level of precision was unusual for World War II ammunition. Most rounds allowed wider tolerances, but canister depended on consistency. All 122 balls must exit simultaneously. Any ball catching on cylinder edge or launching early created gaps in pattern. Gaps meant survivors. Survivors meant Marines dying to bayonets. First canisters shipped to Pacific July. Hayes included letter to Thomas. Did not mention wound, did not mention obsession. Just wrote new ammunition arriving. Load canister for close defense. Trust the physics. Thomas received crates at Guadalcanal, August 10th. 11 days before Tenerife. 11 days before Patterson would use Hayes's engineering to kill 800 men in single night. 11 days before physics would prove superior to faith. August 1942. Truck Lagoon. Colonel Takeshi Matsuda reviewed his orders with supreme confidence. 38 years old, veteran of Manchuria in China, commander of 28th Infantry Regiment's Elite 1st Battalion, 917 men, best trained soldiers in Imperial Army. They had never lost, never retreated, never failed to break enemy resistance through superior warrior spirit. Sation, the intangible quality that made Japanese soldiers superior to all others. Faith in steel, faith in training, faith in Bushido code that taught death before dishonor. Intelligence reports claimed 2,000 Americans held Guadalcanal, maybe fewer. Green troops, inexperienced. They would break when real soldiers attacked. Matsuda believed this absolutely. He had seen American prisoners in China, soft men, lacking discipline, lacking spiritual strength that made Japanese forces invincible. His men had trained for close combat, bayonet charges, hand-to-hand fighting where courage mattered more than firepower. They had practiced banzai attacks until the scream became second nature, until charging into death became reflexive rather than choice. This was how battles were won, through will, through spirit, through refusing to accept defeat regardless of material circumstances. Matsuda had written to his wife Yuki before departing Truk about their daughter Hanako, 8 years old, growing up in Yokosuka without father. He told Yuki the same thing he told her in every letter. Japanese steel protected him. Superior training ensured victory. American weapons were inferior. American soldiers lacked Bushido spirit. The war would end soon. He would return home. They would be family again. Faith made it certain. Seishin made it inevitable. But Matsuda made calculation error. Assumed Americans would fight like Europeans. Stand-up battles, rifles and mortars, conventional tactics. He did not account for American innovation. Did not know about 37mm guns positioned at Alligator Creek. Certainly did not know about canister rounds. Japanese doctrine had no equivalent weapon. Their anti-tank guns fired solid shot. The concept of artillery-scale shotgun shells did not exist in their tactical manuals. This knowledge gap would kill 800 men, would destroy Matsuda's faith, would prove that physics cared nothing for Bushido when physics was applied with sufficient precision. Matsuda's tactical plan was sound by Japanese standards. Night attack to maximize psychological impact. Concentrate forces at obvious crossing point, Alligator Creek sandbar where water was shallowest. Overwhelm American positions through speed and violence. Break their nerve before they could organize effective resistance. Standard doctrine, proven tactics, should work. But Marine Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Puller positioned forces with different understanding. Machine gun nests creating interlocking fire. Barbed wire funneling attackers toward kill zones. And at Sandbar, the most obvious attack wrote 2 37mm guns. Gun crews received unusual orders. Load canister, all canister, no armor piercing, no high explosive, just tin cylinders. Some Marines questioned it. Canister had not been used in warfare since Civil War. Would it even work? Guns were designed for 500-yard engagements. Canister was rated for 250 yards maximum. At close range, nobody knew what would happen. Theory said it should create devastating effect. But theory and combat were different animals. Patterson loaded first round feeling its weight, lighter than armor piercing. The tin shell cool against his palms. He thought about Edward, about Pearl Harbor, about promise to mother. This round represented physics, mathematics, cold engineering that cared nothing for courage or spirit or Bushido. Just steel balls at 2,600 feet per second. Just kinetic energy transferring into human flesh. Just revenge delivered through superior technology. Nobody mentioned this was executing men rather than fighting them. Nobody said this was slaughter rather than combat. War made killing acceptable when killing served strategy. Canister served strategy perfectly. That was all that mattered, and that was all anyone said mattered. 1:30 a.m. The world ignited. Japanese mortars pounded Marine positions. Machine guns chattered from far bank. Then first wave launched. Approximately 100 men charging across exposed sandbar. Screaming banzai, rifles blazing. They expected Americans to break, to run, to die like British in Malaya, Dutch in Java. Instead, they met mathematics. Marine machine guns opened first. Browning M1919s spitting 30 caliber rounds at 600 rounds per minute. Tracers arc through flare-lit darkness. Japanese soldiers fell, but they kept coming, driven by training and terror and belief in inevitable victory. Some reached wire, then Patterson fired. Boom. The sound was wrong. Not sharp crack of armor piercing, something deeper, throatier. The effect was immediate and total. Where dozen Japanese soldiers charged suddenly, there was empty space. Bodies tumbled like disconnected puppets. The canister pattern cone of 122 steel balls swept sandbar clean. Patterson stared, could not comprehend. Sullivan reloaded. Load, fire, load, fire. The barrel heated rapidly. Through smoke, more Japanese emerged. They did not understand what was happening. Why entire ranks disappeared between heartbeats. Modern soldiers were not trained for canister. Tactical manual had no defense against becoming target for 122 simultaneous projectiles. They charged anyway. Station demanded it. Second wave, 150 men. Same result. The 37mm guns fired so rapidly barrels glowed red, visible even through smoke and flares. Marines described it as hellish, beautiful and terrible. Each shot erased 10-15 men from existence. Sandbar became impassable, not from Japanese courage, from Japanese corpses. This was moment everything changed. Matsuda refused to believe radio reports. Massive casualties, impenetrable firepower, attack faltering. Possible, these were his best men. Imperial soldiers did not fail. Americans must be bluffing. Few lucky shots, perhaps. He ordered another assault. 2:30 a.m. Wave 3 launched. This time, Japanese officers divided forces. Some charged Sandbar again. Others waded into creek upstream, seeking to outflank Marine position. Water was chest deep. Rifles held overhead. Excellent targets. Marine mortars found them. 80mm rounds dropping among waiting soldiers with surgical precision. Those who survived bombardment reached far bank only to meet machine gun fire. But few broke through. Hand-to-hand combat erupted along Marine line. Bayonets clashed. Grenades exploded. For moments, defense seemed fragile. Then 37mm guns traversed. Patterson's crew repositioned weapon to fire straight down creek bank. At this range, less than 50 yards canister became obscene. Steel balls did not just hit targets. They passed through multiple bodies, ricocheted off trees, skipped across water. Marines described sound like hail on tin roof if hail were deadly and roof were human flesh. The breakthrough collapsed. Dawn arrived slowly, revealing carnage. Bodies stacked 3 deep in front of 37mm positions. The sandbar was no longer sand. It was red mud and torn equipment and things that used to be men. Patterson walked through aftermath with Sullivan. Counted bodies, stopped at 47, could not continue. The mathematics were too terrible. Each canister round had killed average 15 men. Patterson's gun crew had fired 80 rounds. Simple multiplication produced number he could not accept. 200 potential casualties from his weapon alone. Actual count would be lower. Many rounds hit empty ground after initial waves collapsed. But even conservative estimates suggested Patterson personally participated in killing 300 men. Sullivan tried to rationalize it. They would have killed us if we had not killed them first. War is war. We did our jobs. Patterson understood these words, did not believe them, could not reconcile efficient killing with being human. Edward had died at Pearl Harbor without fighting back. Patterson had promised revenge, had delivered it. But revenge looked like oil spreading across sand from ruptured bodies. Looked like faces frozen in final moments of understanding that courage meant nothing. Looked like proof that American engineering could reduce Japanese faith to statistics. Sergeant Daniel Cooper found them, machine gunner who had survived night. He had seen combat before. North Africa, different there. Tanks, artillery duels, cover and maneuver. This was industrial killing. Canister turned war into slaughterhouse operation. Efficient, mechanical, disturbing, but necessary. Because those Japanese soldiers charging through fields of fire, accepting certain death, they would not stop. Could not stop. Their code demanded it. Between Station and canister, there was no middle ground. Only survival or annihilation. The 37mm chose annihilation every time. Final tally, approximately 800 Japanese dead. 15 prisoners only because they were unconscious. Marine casualties, 44 killed. The numbers told story. Canister wrote it in blood. Physics had defeated faith. Mathematics had overcome courage. American engineering had proven that Bushido meant nothing against 122 steel balls traveling at 2,600 feet per second. The weapon nobody expected to matter had become indispensable. The Civil War relic had redefined Pacific warfare. The giant shotgun had demonstrated that modern combat belonged to those who understood physics rather than those who believed in transcendent warrior qualities. But weapon success carried irony. The better it performed, the less often it would be used, because enemies learned to avoid triggering it. Japanese commanders would study Tenaru, would analyze what happened on that sandbar, would change tactics to prevent similar massacres, would abandon banzai charges that had defined their military philosophy, would adapt, would learn, would prove that even faith could yield to evidence when evidence came in form of 800 dead soldiers who had believed courage could overcome physics. Patterson sat on beach as sun rose over Pacific, watched oil slicks spread, watched debris float on gentle swells, life jackets, papers, personal effects, small reminders that 68 men per wave had existed, had lived, had families waiting. He thought about Edward, about promise to mother, about revenge that tasted like ashes, about understanding that killing efficiently did not feel like victory, felt like becoming something less than human, felt like trading soul for mathematics, felt like winning battle while losing something essential about being American, about being Marine, about being man who could look in mirror without seeing executioner. Sullivan sat beside him, did not speak, just shared silence, shared understanding that they had crossed line, had become killers rather than warriors, had used weapon that made combat into slaughter, had proven that American innovation could reduce Japanese faith to corpses stacked on beach. Both men understood this was necessary, also understood necessary did not mean good, did not mean honorable, did not mean they would sleep without nightmares, did not mean they could forget sound of bodies crumpling, could not unhear screams, could not unsee what physics looked like when applied to human flesh. The weapon worked. Statistics proved it. 800 Japanese dead, 44 Marines killed, ratio of 18-1, mathematics that saved American lives. But mathematics could not capture cost, could not measure what Patterson and Sullivan had lost by becoming so efficient at killing, could not calculate price paid in humanity, in sleep, inability to see Japanese soldiers as humans rather than targets. Physics had won battle, but winning extracted costs that would be paid for the rest of their lives, in nightmares, in guilt, in understanding that revenge through superior engineering felt nothing like justice, felt only like proof that war made everyone into killers and called it duty, called it necessary, called it acceptable because alternative was dying rather than killing. Patterson would fire that weapon again, would kill efficiently, would use Hayes's engineering to save Marines. But he would never celebrate it, would never take pride in mathematics that reduced courage to statistics, would carry Tenaru for the rest of his life, would remember faces he never saw, names he never knew, families destroyed because American physics proved superior to Japanese steel, would understand that necessary and right were not same thing. That war demanded efficiency, but efficiency extracted costs statistics never captured. That winning through superior weapons was achievement only war made acceptable. That peace would require rebuilding humanity efficiency had destroyed. That physics might win battles, but only humans could win peace. And peace was what made survival worth surviving, what made killing worth ending, what made revenge worth regretting, what made efficiency worth questioning even as it saved lives, what made being human matter more than being effective killer. That was lesson Tenaru taught. That was cost canister extracted. That was price physics demanded. And Patterson would pay it for the rest of his life. August 23, 1942, 2 days after Tenaru. Patterson could not sleep. The numbers haunted him, not the official count. 800 Japanese dead, 44 Marines killed, ratio of 18-1, statistics that looked like victory in after-action reports, numbers that made commanders nod with approval, mathematics that proved American engineering superiority. But Patterson counted differently. Counted the bodies he could see before stopping, 47, counted the canister rounds his crew fired, 80, calculated average kills per round, 15 men, did the multiplication that produced nightmare, 200 potential casualties from his weapon alone. The mathematics were impossible to escape. Each tin cylinder packed with 122 steel balls, each ball capable of punching through 4 inches of human flesh. At 30 yards, the pattern covered 10 feet wide, 8 feet tall. Simple geometry determined how many men fit in that space. 6 bodies standing shoulder to shoulder. 122 projectiles divided by 6 targets, 20 hits per person. No human body could withstand that. No courage could overcome it. No faith could protect against it. Just physics, just mathematics, just death delivered with industrial efficiency. Sullivan found Patterson at dawn sitting on beach staring at water. The corpsman said, "You did not sleep again. Third night, you need rest. We have patrol duty tomorrow." Patterson did not respond, just watched oil slicks spread across calm ocean, debris floating, life jackets, papers written in Japanese, personal effects from 800 men who had believed courage mattered, who had charged into physics thinking Bushido would protect them, who had learned in final seconds that American engineering made faith irrelevant. They were brave. Patterson spoke without looking at Sullivan. Those Japanese soldiers, suicidally brave, ran through machine gun fire, accepted certain death to reach us, and we killed them like animals. Like targets in shooting gallery. They had families, mothers waiting, wives who will receive telegrams, children who will grow up without fathers, 800 families destroyed because I pulled trigger 80 times, because physics worked, because courage meant nothing against mathematics. Sullivan sat beside him, lit cigarette with hands that shook slightly. We did our jobs. They would have killed us. War is war. The words sounded hollow, sounded like excuse rather than justification. Both men understood this, understood that necessary and right were different things, that war made killing acceptable did not make killing good, that surviving by becoming efficient executioner extracted costs statistics never measured. Sergeant Cooper approached carrying message. Orders for Patterson's crew. Prepare to move north. Japanese probing defenses. Need 37mm guns repositioned. More canister rounds being distributed. Command was pleased with Tenaru results. Wanted to replicate success across entire defensive perimeter. Wanted every gun crew trained on canister employment. Wanted physics to defeat faith wherever Japanese forces attacked. Patterson read orders without expression. Understood what this meant. More killing, more efficiency, more mathematics transforming courage into corpses. More nights without sleep, more bodies counted, more families destroyed through superior American engineering. August 25th, 1942. Small Japanese force attempted night infiltration. 30 men seeking to bypass main defenses. Scout reported movement at 50 yards. Patterson's crew responded. Loaded canister, standard procedure now. Physics had proven itself. At 50 yards, the pattern should cover entire squad. Should kill all 30, should demonstrate again that courage meant nothing against 122 steel balls traveling at 600 feet per second. Patterson aimed, fired. Something went wrong. The tin cylinder malfunctioned, tumbled in flight. Steel balls scattered randomly instead of spreading in calculated cone. 3 Japanese killed by lucky hits. 27 escaped into darkness. Sullivan reloaded frantically. Second shot. Perfect pattern, remaining infiltrators died instantly. But Patterson stared at 27 bodies that should not have required second round, should have died to first shot. Instead, his weapon malfunctioned, wasted precious canister, wasted ammunition Hayes had spent months perfecting, wasted resource that could save other Marines in different engagement. That failure haunted Patterson differently than kills haunted him. Killing was war, missing was incompetence. Wasting canister when supplies were limited felt like betraying every Marine who might need those rounds later. The obsession shifted. Not just guilt over efficient killing, guilt over not killing efficiently enough, over failing to make every round count, over understanding that resources were finite and Japanese forces were not, that mathematics of war demanded perfect execution, that missing meant wasting opportunity, meant potentially allowing enemies to kill Americans. The logic was circular, terrible, inescapable. November 1943, Tarawa. Marines assaulted Betio Island. The beach was killing ground, Japanese bunkers, interlocking fire, mines everywhere, casualties mounted crossing seawall. But crews brought 37mm guns. Weapons were light enough at 900 pounds that men could physically heave them over 5-foot concrete barriers. They did exactly that. Set up guns behind cover, loaded canister. Japanese counterattacks died before starting. Captain Sato led 50 men in flanking maneuver. His tactical plan was sound. Approach through dead ground. Emerge at close range. Overwhelm Americans through speed and violence. His men were ready, motivated. They rounded corner into kill zone. Patterson's gun was waiting. One shot. Entire squad leader groups ceased to exist. The survivors froze. Not from cowardice, from shock. Human mind could not accept what happened. Physics had violated reality, made men vanish, made courage irrelevant. They retreated. This represented fundamental shift. The banzai charge stopped working, not because Japanese soldiers lost courage, because courage became mathematically pointless. Intelligence officers noticed patterns. Japanese forces increasingly relied on light infiltration, small unit tactics, snipers, bypassing strong points rather than assaulting them. The psychological impact extended beyond individual battles. Wounded Japanese soldiers, knowing they faced canister if they charged, increasingly chose to fight from cover. Surrender rates dropped. Why risk capture when alternative was instant death from invisible weapon? Canister created paradox. Designed for defense but bred desperation. Saved Marine lives but ensured Japanese fought to last man. Made tactical sense but guaranteed strategic brutality. March 1944. Rock Island Arsenal. Hayes received letter from Thomas. His son's unit had used canister rounds 6 months earlier, had employed them at Tarawa. Thomas described effects with clinical precision. Described how single round killed 15 men. Described how Japanese charges collapsed against physics. Described how his Marines survived because Hayes's engineering worked perfectly. Then Thomas wrote something Hayes had not expected. Father, your weapon saves American lives. I understand this. Used it myself at Tarawa. Watched it kill efficiently. But efficiency extracts costs you cannot see from Illinois workshop. I have killed 180 men with canister. Watched them vanish in clouds of blood and steel. Never saw their faces. Never knew their names. Just killed them and moved to next target. Cannot celebrate that efficiency. Cannot be proud of mathematics that reduces men to statistics. Cannot forget that somewhere Japanese mothers wait for sons who will never return because American physics proves superior to their steel. Is this progress? Is this achievement? Or is this just murder made efficient through superior engineering? Hayes read letter 10 times. Could not answer Thomas's questions. Could not reconcile saving his son's life with understanding that salvation required industrial-scale killing. The weapon worked. Statistics proved it. Marine casualties dropped 30% in engagements where canister deployed. That translated to 8,000 Marines who came home instead of dying. Real people. Real families saved by tin cans filled with steel balls. But Japanese losses told darker story. Weapon-trapped Imperial forces in tactical dilemma with no solutions. Abandon banzai charges and surrender psychological advantage. Continue them and feed men into meat grinders. Every canister round that saved American life took 15 Japanese lives. Mathematics said this was acceptable. Morality asked whether acceptable meant right. Margaret found Hayes in workshop late that night. He sat staring at Thomas's letter. At questions he could not answer. At understanding that engineering excellence carried moral weight statistics never captured. She read letter over his shoulder. Understood immediately what Thomas was asking. What Hayes was questioning. Whether building weapon that worked too well was achievement or curse. Whether efficiency in killing served humanity or only served death. You built weapon that saved our son. Margaret spoke quietly, firmly. For that I cannot question you. Mother's duty is protecting her child. Engineering that kept Thomas alive was engineering any parent would develop. But Thomas asks different question. Not whether weapon works, whether working too well makes us into something we should not be. Whether efficiency without humanity is progress or just better murder. Hayes had no answer. Worked through night anyway, testing new batch of canister rounds. Verifying quality, ensuring specifications met standards. Ensuring 122 steel balls per round would kill efficiently when Marines needed them. Ensuring physics would defeat faith. ensuring American lives would be saved through Japanese deaths. The work continued because alternative was unthinkable, was allowing Thomas to die, was failing his father, was choosing morality over family. Hayes could not make that choice. Would build weapons, would perfect engineering, would save his son regardless of philosophical cost, would let Thomas carry guilt, would let own conscience bear weight, would accept that loving son meant enabling efficient killing. Mathematics was brutal. Love was more brutal. June 1944, Saipan. Marines landed expecting fanatical resistance. Got it, but brought 48 37mm guns loaded primarily with canister. Japanese General Saito launched massive banzai charges. Thousands of soldiers in human waves meant to overwhelm through sheer numbers. The charges collapsed against canister walls. Marines positioned guns in depth. First line fired, reloaded. Second line fired while first reloaded. Overlapping patterns created kill zones 30 yards deep. Japanese soldiers literally could not reach American lines through steel storm. One gun crew fired 120 rounds in single night. That was 14,640 steel balls launched at charging infantry. The crew's position showed aftermath. Bodies stacked so densely that follow-up charges tripped over corpses. The psychological impact on surviving Japanese soldiers was devastating. Some officers committed suicide rather than order more attacks. Faith in Bushido had been destroyed, not by lack of courage, by understanding that courage was insufficient against American engineering. That warrior spirit meant nothing against physics applied with industrial efficiency. Patterson's crew was at Saipan, had been using canister for nearly 2 years, had killed over 500 men through perfect application of Hayes's engineering. Patterson was 24 years old, looked 40, eyes hollow, hands shaking even when not firing. Sleep came in 2-hour increments interrupted by nightmares. Dreams about bodies vanishing, about mathematics transforming humans into statistics, about physics proving superior to faith, about oil slicks spreading, about debris floating, about 500 families destroyed because he pulled trigger efficiently. Sullivan noticed the change. Patterson barely spoke anymore, just performed duties mechanically. Loaded canister, aimed, fired, reloaded, counted bodies when ordered, wrote reports, followed procedures. But something essential was gone. Something human had been traded for efficiency, something that could not be reclaimed through victory or survival or understanding that killing was necessary. War made everyone into killers. Canister made killers into executioners, made soldiers into mathematicians calculating death, made humans into weapons as cold as steel balls traveling at 2,600 feet per second. April 1945. Okinawa. War's endgame unfolded 350 miles from Japan. Over 100,000 Japanese defenders were prepared for apocalyptic resistance. American planners expected carnage. Were right, but not in way anticipated. Japanese Commander General Ushijima changed tactics completely. No more banzai charges. Those failed everywhere canister existed. Instead, defense in depth, fortified positions, attrition warfare. Let Americans come to you. Bleed them in kill zones where terrain favored defenders. The 37mm guns suddenly faced greatest challenge. Canister needed targets. Visible mass targets within 250 yards. Ushijima's forces would not provide them. They hid in reverse slopes, caves, fortified villages. When they counterattacked, it was in small groups, squad-size infiltrations rather than company-level assaults. Patterson's crew realized bitter truth. Weapon that saved them at Guadalcanal Tarawa Saipan was being neutralized, not through superior technology, through learning. Japanese studied American tactics, identified canister threat, adapted accordingly. Some historians would later argue this represented turning point. Imperial Army's willingness to modify doctrine mid-war. Abandoning cherished banzai charge that defined military philosophy for decades spoke to canister's devastating effectiveness. They would rather sacrifice tradition than face steel balls again. But adaptation cut both ways. Marine crews innovated, began using canister for tasks never imagined, clearing vegetation to improve fields of fire. The 122 balls shredded jungle growth efficiently, demolishing light structures, creating breaching points in walls. Weapon transitioned from anti-personnel to multi-role utility. Tank crews discovered another application. Fire canister at base of fortifications. Balls ricocheted upward, entered firing slits from below. Japanese defenders expecting direct frontal fire positioned themselves to avoid that angle. Did not expect projectiles bouncing off ground. Casualties from skip shots climbed. Weapon evolved, adapted, found new ways to kill efficiently even when traditional applications failed. May 4th, 1945. Ushijima ordered one final massive banzai charge, not because he believed in outdated tactics, because he needed to buy time for defensive preparations, needed Americans to expend ammunition, needed to test whether they still had canister or whether supplies had run out. 5,000 Japanese soldiers launched at American lines. Largest banzai charge since Saipan. Patterson's position faced 300 attackers. His crew had 12 canister rounds remaining. Supply shortages had reduced allocations. Some crews mixed canister with high explosive. 2 canister, 1 HE. Repeat, less effective but better than no canister at all. Patterson fired, reloaded, fired, each round killing 15 men average. After 8th shot, Sullivan reached for 9th canister, found high explosive instead. Grabbed it anyway. No time to sort ammunition in darkness with enemy charging. Fired. The HE round detonated among attacking Japanese. Killed 5, wounded 8. Compared to canister, nearly useless. Japanese soldiers realized difference immediately. Understood Americans had run out of devil weapon. Pressed attack with renewed fury. Reached Marine positions. Hand-to-hand combat erupted. Patterson used rifle as club. Sullivan fought with knife. For 5 terrible minutes, courage mattered again. Bushido had chance against mathematics. Then neighboring gun position traversed. Fired canister at Patterson's position. Killed attacking Japanese. Also killed 2 Marines who were too close. Fratricide. Friendly fire. Price of using weapon that could not distinguish friend from foe at close range. The charge collapsed, but this time Japanese inflicted casualties. 40 Marines killed in Patterson's sector. Highest loss since Guadalcanal. Post-battle analysis was clear. When canister supplies ran low, Japanese tactics became effective again. Weapon had created dependency. Remove it and American casualties spiked. Patterson sat in foxhole after battle, held last canister round, felt its weight, 122 steel balls packed in tin cylinder, physics that had saved his life, mathematics that had killed 500 men, engineering that had made courage irrelevant for 3 years. But supplies were running out. By May 1945, canister rounds were critically short. Some units reported zero inventory, had to rely on conventional weapons, had to accept higher losses. The advantage was temporary by definition, based on resource that could not be sustained indefinitely. Sullivan found him, sat without speaking. Both men understood what this meant. War of attrition meant eventually running out. Eventually physics would not be available. Eventually courage would matter again. Eventually they would fight on equal terms. Eventually the advantage Hayes's engineering provided would expire. Then what? Then Marines would die at higher rates. Then Japanese soldiers would have chance to use their training. Then Bushido might matter. Then courage could overcome firepower. Then mathematics would favor defenders. Then everything would change again. But for now they had 1 canister round, 1 tin cylinder, 1 chance to make physics matter, 1 opportunity to prove engineering superior to faith. Patterson loaded it into gun, would save it for moment that mattered most, would use it when Marines needed it desperately, would make those 122 steel balls count, would ensure this last round killed efficiently, would honor Hayes's engineering, would respect Thomas's questions, would carry guilt over efficiency, would understand that necessary and right were different, would accept that war made everyone into killers, would recognize that canister made killers into executioners, would know that surviving required becoming something less than human, would live with that knowledge, would carry it forward, would remember every body counted, every face never seen, every family destroyed through superior American physics, the weapon that crushed men like paper, the giant shotgun that made courage mathematically irrelevant, the M2 canister round. It had saved Patterson's life. had killed his humanity, had proven physics superior to faith, had demonstrated engineering could defeat courage, had shown that modern warfare belonged to those who understood mathematics. But understanding this provided no comfort, brought no pride, offered no redemption, just knowledge that efficiency in killing was achievement only war made acceptable, that peace would require rebuilding what efficiency destroyed, that surviving meant carrying weight of 500 dead, that coming home meant explaining to mother why Edward's death led to 500 other mothers losing sons, that mathematics might justify killing but could never erase cost, that physics won battles but humanity determined whether winning meant anything. That was burden. That was price. That was what Canister extracted from everyone who used it efficiently. And Patterson would carry that burden for the rest of his life. August 22nd, 1942. Dawn after Tenaru. Colonel Takeshi Matsuda crouched in Coconut Grove with 17 surviving men from his 917 Soldier Battalion. Around him lay proof that faith could not overcome physics. 800 dead, bodies stacked where American weapons had made courage irrelevant. He had ordered 3 waves, each destroyed by invisible weapon. Gun that killed entire squads with single shot. Physics he did not understand. Technology Japanese doctrine never anticipated. Matsuda understood with terrible clarity that he had led men into slaughter through faith in outdated principles. Bushido taught that spirit overcame material advantage. Seishin made Japanese soldiers superior. But American engineering had rendered spirit meaningless, had proven steel balls at 2 to 600 feet per second cared nothing for warrior code, had demonstrated modern warfare belonged to those who understood physics rather than those who believed in transcendent qualities. His entire career, his entire belief system had been proven false by mathematics. He thought about Yuki, about Hanako, about letters promising victory, promising return, promises built on faith that Japanese steel would protect him. Steel had failed. Faith had failed. Bushido had no answer for American Canister. Matsuda drew his sword. Ritual suicide was only honorable choice. Could not return to Japan in defeat. Could not face Emperor having failed catastrophically. Could not live knowing faith had killed 800 men through ignorance of enemy capabilities. Better death, better joining soldiers, better maintaining honor through final act than surviving a symbol of failure. Lieutenant Kenji Watanabe watched from 15 feet away. He was 31 years old, had survived Tenaru by being knocked unconscious during first canister shot, woke to find entire company dead around him, watched Matsuda perform seppuku, watched Colonel die believing in honor. Watanabe understood differently. Understood Matsuda died not from honor, but from inability to accept that faith was insufficient. That courage meant nothing against physics. That Bushido could not answer American engineering. The colonel's death changed nothing, saved no one, just added one more body to 800 already dead. American Marines swept Grove at dawn, found Watanabe unconscious again, bleeding from shrapnel wounds. Took him prisoner. 15 Japanese survived Tenaru, only because they were unconscious when Marines arrived. Only because physics had already defeated courage so completely that no fight remained. Watanabe spent rest of war in POW camp. Learned about canister from American guards. Learned about 122 steel balls. Learned about physics that made Bushido irrelevant. Learned that weapon he could not understand was Civil War technology perfected by engineer who loved his son. Understanding this made it worse somehow. Made Matsuda's faith seem more tragic. Made 800 deaths seem more wasteful. Made courage seem more futile against mathematics. 1995. Tokyo. Hanako Matsuda was 58 years old, successful businesswoman, had grown up believing father died heroically at Guadalcanal. Japanese government records said Colonel Matsuda fell in combat August 22, 1942. Battle report mentioned fierce American resistance, superior firepower, heroic Japanese sacrifice, no mention of bonsai charges, no mention of canister, no mention that Matsuda committed seppuku in disgrace after leading men into massacre. American historian researching Pacific War contacted Hanako. Wanted interview about father. Showed her declassified documents. Battle reports describing canister effectiveness at Tenaru. Describing 800 Japanese dead. describing weapon that made Japanese tactics obsolete. Hanako read documents with growing horror. Understanding father had not died heroically in combat, had died after watching entire command be destroyed by weapon they had no defense against, had died understanding faith had been misplaced, had died knowing Bushido was insufficient against American physics. But documents contained something unexpected. Letter from Private James Patterson, written 1975, addressed to families of Japanese soldiers killed at Tenaru. Patterson had tried to locate survivors, had wanted to apologize, had wanted to explain he took no pride in efficiency, that killing 300 men haunted him, that he understood Japanese soldiers were brave, that courage deserved respect even when physics defeated it. The letter never reached most families, but historian had copy, gave it to Hanako. She read American soldiers' guilt, read his acknowledgement that Japanese soldiers had died courageously, read his understanding that war made everyone into killers and called it duty. Hanako wept, not for father's death, for understanding both sides had suffered. That American soldier who killed father's men carried guilt. That efficiency in killing extracted costs from victors and vanquished. That war made mathematics into morality, then demanded humans live with equations and afterward. She decided to respond to Patterson's letter, 20 years late. But some conversations transcended time. December 7, 1975, Pearl Harbor Memorial, 34th anniversary of attack. Kenji Watanabe attended ceremony. He was 61 years old, had survived Tenaru as one of 15 prisoners, had spent war in POW camp, returned to Japan 1946, became teacher, spent 30 years teaching students about war's costs, about how courage could not overcome superior technology, about how both sides suffered regardless of who won. Patterson attended same ceremony. He was 55, had left Marines 1946, could not continue as warrior after becoming executioner, worked construction in Pennsylvania, married, 3 children, lived quiet life. But every December 7th he attended Pearl Harbor Memorial, remembered Edward, remembered promise to mother, remembered 300 Japanese soldiers he had killed with physics, remembered revenge tasted like ashes. They met by accident. Watanabe saw Patterson's Marine Corps hat, 1st Marine Division patch, asked which battles. Patterson listed them. Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan. Watanabe said quietly, I was at Guadalcanal, Tenaru. I survived American weapon I could not understand. Weapon that killed my entire company in minutes. Never knew what hit us until POW camp. Americans explained, 37mm gun, canister round, like giant shotgun, like physics made into death. Patterson stared. You survived, Tenaru. Watanabe nodded. Only because I was unconscious. 17 of us lived, 800 died. I watched squad vanish between heartbeats. No warning, no sound except single boom, then everyone around me was gone. For 30 years I have asked myself what weapon could do that, how physics could make courage irrelevant, how I survived when better men died. Patterson spoke with difficulty. I fired that weapon, 37mm gun crew. We killed 300 men that night. Maybe more. I cannot be certain. Stop counting at 47 bodies. Your squad, your company, they died to gun butts I operated. They were brave, charged through machine gun fire, accepted death. But bravery meant nothing against canister. 122 steel balls per round, mathematics, physics, engineering that reduced courage to statistics. Watanabe was silent for a long moment, then said, I forgive you. Not because killing was acceptable, because war makes us all killers. You killed my comrades. I tried to kill your comrades. Both of us served countries. Both believed in causes. Neither chose to make war. Just chose to survive it. Your weapon was more efficient. That is why America won. That is why I am alive to forgive you. That is mathematics. But you came here 33 years later. You remember, you carry guilt. That is humanity. Physics wins battles. Humanity wins peace. I choose to build peace with former enemy rather than carry hatred for dead comrades. They stood together at memorial. 2 old soldiers who had tried to kill each other, who had succeeded at killing others, who chose to build friendship from attempted murder. who proved humans make choices about what weapons mean, that physics may win battles, but humanity determines whether victory means anything lasting. Patterson spoke again, voice shaking. I have carried Tenaru for 33 years. Every night I see bodies vanishing, hear screams, calculate mathematics that turn men into statistics. My weapons saved American lives. I understand this. But understanding does not erase cost, does not make efficient killing into achievement worth celebrating, does not transform executioner into warrior. I killed because war demanded it, but demanding did not make it right, only made it necessary. And necessary is not same as good. Watanabe listened, understood. We were both young, both believed in causes, both did what war demanded. Your weapon was terrible. Mine was inadequate. You survived through superior engineering. I survived through unconsciousness. Neither of us chose outcomes. War chose for us. Now we choose differently. Choose peace. Choose understanding. Choose to prove humanity can overcome what physics created. That is only victory that matters now. 1946. Rock Island Arsenal closing, canister production. War ended August 1945. Atomic bombs made invasion of Japan unnecessary, made canister obsolete. Hayes supervised destruction of remaining inventory. 50,000 rounds scrapped, melted down, converted back to raw materials. Technology that saved 8,000 Marine lives disappeared from arsenals, not because ineffective, because too effective, too savage for peacetime sensibilities. Made killing too efficient, made war too mechanical. Better to forget weapon that proved courage irrelevant. Hayes wrote letter to Thomas that night, never sent it, found in papers after death in 1968. Thomas of Archer built weapon that saved your life. For that, I cannot apologize. Father's duty is protecting son. Engineering that kept you alive was engineering I would develop again if faced with same choice. But I want you to understand cost of that efficiency. 9% of all 37mm ammunition produced during war was canister, roughly 7 million rounds. Each round killed average 15 men when used against massed infantry. Simple multiplication produces number that haunts me. 105,000 men died to weapon I perfected. Not all canister rounds hit targets. Not all fired at massed groups. Conservative estimates suggest 50,000 casualties directly attributable to my engineering. 50,000 families destroyed. 50,000 mothers waiting for sons who never returned. Because I was good at my job. Because I solved problem efficiently. Because saving you required killing them. I do not regret this. Regret suggests I would choose differently. I would not. Would build weapon again. Would perfect it again. Would send it to Pacific again. Would save your life again, regardless of cost to enemy. But I insist we acknowledge cost. Acknowledge that efficiency in killing is achievement only war makes acceptable. Acknowledge that mathematics which justified building weapon cannot erase human cost of using it. 50,000 dead. That number matters more than 7 million rounds produced. That number is not statistic. Is families? Is futures that never happen? Is mathematics transformed into mourning? Build peace, son. Build world where my engineering is not needed. Build future where courage matters again. Where physics serves humanity rather than death. Where fathers do not perfect weapons to save sons. That is only way efficiency becomes worthwhile. Only way 50,000 deaths purchase anything lasting. March 2003, Iraq. Urban combat in Fallujah. Marine Corps reintroduced canister, M10 M38 round for 120mm tank guns. 100 tungsten balls per round. Same principle Hayes perfected 60 years earlier. Same physics, modern materials. Patterson's grandson, Marine Corporal Edward Patterson, named for great-uncle killed at Pearl Harbor, operated M1 Abrams tank. Used M1028 canister to clear buildings. Watched it work exactly as grandfather described. Watched groups of insurgents vanish. Watched physics make courage irrelevant. Watched mathematics reduce humans to casualties. Edward called Patterson after rotation home. Described weapon. Described effects. Described guilt. Patterson recognized obsession in grandson's voice. Same obsession that had consumed him after Tenaru. Same understanding that efficient killing extracted cost statistics never captured. Same questions about whether physics that won battles was achievement or curse. You will carry this. Patterson spoke quietly into phone. Cannot avoid it. Weapon works too well. Makes killing too efficient. Makes courage irrelevant. I carried Guadalcanal for 60 years. Every night saw bodies vanishing. Calculated mathematics. Understood I had become executioner rather than warrior. You will experience same. We'll count bodies. We'll do arithmetic. We'll understand that necessary and right are different things. But you can choose what you build from it. Choose peace. Choose understanding. Choose to make killing worth ending by ensuring it stays ended. Edward listened. Understood. Grandfather spoke from experience that could not be taught. Only lived. Only survived. Only carried forward into whatever peace might follow. October 2012. Patterson was 92 years old. Historian recording oral histories of World War II veterans interviewed him, asked about Tenarue, about canister, about killing 300 men with physics. Patterson spoke for 3 hours, described weapon, described effects, described bodies stacked 3 deep, then spoke about 1975, about meeting Watanabe, about understanding enemies could recognize shared humanity, about building peace that made killing worth surviving. They ask me if I am proud of what I did at Tenarue. Answer is no. Pride suggests achievement disconnected from cost. I am not proud of killing martyred men, but I am not ashamed either. Shame suggests I would choose differently. I would not. Would fire canister again to save my Marines. Would kill efficiently rather than die honorably. War demands such choices. Demands we kill before being killed. Demands efficiency over mercy. But I insist we understand what efficiency cost. Cost 50,000 Japanese dead to Hayes' engineering. Cost my nightmares for 70 years. Cost Watanabe his comrades. Cost Matsuda his honor and life. Cost Hanako her father. Cost everyone who touched this weapon something essential about being human. We became executioners, became mathematicians calculating death, became proof that modern warfare serves physics rather than courage. Yet I also insist we understand what efficiency purchased. Purchased 8,000 American lives. Purchased my survival to meet Watanabe. Purchased opportunity to build peace with former enemies. Purchased grandson's chance to serve country as I served mine. Purchased understanding that war makes everyone into killers, but peace determines whether killing meant anything lasting. The weapon that crushed men like paper. The giant shotgun that made courage mathematically irrelevant. The M2 canister round. It saved my life, killed my humanity, then gave me 70 years to rebuild humanity through choosing peace over hatred, through meeting Watanabe, through teaching grandson that physics wins battles but humanity wins peace, through understanding war demands efficiency but peace demands we remember efficiency's cost. I would fire that weapon again if faced with same choice. But I insist my grandson never faces that choice. Insist we build world where canister stays in museums, where physics serves humanity rather than death, where courage matters because war has ended, where mathematics calculates prosperity rather than casualties, where engineering builds rather than destroys. That is only mathematics that balances, only efficiency that justifies cost, only achievement worth celebrating. Physics won the battle. 800 Japanese dead proved that. But I won peace by meeting Watanabe, by choosing understanding over hatred, by building friendship from attempted murder, by proving humans determine what weapons mean after physics finishes speaking. Canister made killing efficient. Meeting Watanabe made killing worth ending. Both matter. Both shaped who I became. Both determine whether my war service meant something beyond statistics. The weapon sits in museum now, gathering dust. Information placard says anti-personnel ammunition circa 1942. Nothing about Tenarue. Nothing about 800 dead. Nothing about how simple device redefined Pacific infantry combat. Maybe that is better. Some tools of war deserve first aid getting. This one saved thousands and erased thousands more. Let it stay forgotten. Let physics serve humanity again. Let courage matter because war has ended. Let that be legacy. not kill ratios or efficiency rates, but peace that makes killing worth surviving, peace that transforms statistics into meaning, peace that proves humanity can overcome what physics creates. That is only mathematics that matters now. Only efficiency worth achieving. Only weapon that defeats all others. Peace. Patterson died 3 months after interview. December 2012. Funeral at Arlington National Cemetery. Full military honors. Flag-draped coffin. 21-gun salute. Watanabe sent letter read at service. Spoke of friendship built from enmity, of peace constructed from war, of understanding that transcended hatred, of mathematics that proved humanity stronger than physics when humanity chose peace. Hanako attended funeral, flew from Tokyo, met Patterson's family, shared stories about fathers, about war, about costs both sides paid, about understanding that efficiency in killing was achievement only war made acceptable, but peace made questionable, about choosing to build future where canisters stayed in museums, where courage mattered, where physics served life rather than death, where engineering created rather than destroyed, where mathematics calculated hope rather than casualties, where fathers did not perfect weapons, where sons did not fire them, where grandsons did not repeat cycles, where peace was not break between wars but foundation for futures, where humanity proved stronger than any weapon physics could create, where that was legacy worth leaving, worth fighting for, worth building, worth choosing over hatred, over revenge, over efficiency, over mathematics, over physics, over everything except peace. Because peace was what made survival worth surviving, what made killing worth ending, what made war worth preventing, what made humanity worth preserving, what made everything worth anything at all.